Familiar Things is a 2011 novel by the Korean author Hwang Sok-Yong. Hwang was born in 1943 in what's now China after his parents fled the Japanese occupation of Korea. They returned 2 years later. As an adult, he served reluctantly on the American side in the Vietnam War. He organised a visit to North Korea in 1989 to promote literary relations, for which he was imprisoned for 5 years. International outrage eventually secured his release. Nowadays, we tend to regard South Korea as innovative, egalitarian, and hip. It's the land of Squid Game, Parasite, and K-pop. But it wasn't always that way. For most of the 20th century, it suffered repressive regimes, beginning with the Japanese in 1910 and ending with a series of military dictatorships, which didn't fully expire until 1987. Hwang Sok-Yong became a prominent dissident. The Nobel Prize-winning Japanese author Kenzaburo Oe once describing him as undoubtedly the most powerful voice in Asia. It's important to set Familiar Things in that context because it takes place sometime in the mid-1980s, the last gasp of the dictators. There aren't any explicit dates in the novel, but the release of the Nintendo game Super Mario Bros. Plays a significant role in the narrative, and that happened in 1985. The story is about an impoverished young boy of 13 nicknamed Bug-Eye, who begins in the slums of Seoul but who quickly moves with his mother to the city's rubbish dump called Flower Island, in the surprisingly realistic hope of raising their income. The idea is to collect items for recycling and possibly resale. Once there, he makes friends with a slightly younger boy nicknamed Bald Spot, and the two begin to encounter traditional Korean spirits called dokebi. There's a lot in this book, and the summary I've just given barely scratches the surface. The story is plainly told and it's well researched. There's an entire class structure on Flower Island, a sophisticated set of social mores, and a complex, necessarily indirect relationship with the different sectors of the city from which the rubbish comes. It would have been easy for Hwang to present Bug-Eye's plight as a rock-bottom phenomenon, the epitome of loss and humiliation. But he doesn't do that. Beyond his obvious love of his characters, and they're never sentimentalized, the author's main interest seems to lie in the phenomenon of commodification. What counts as rubbish on Flower Island isn't always devoid of intrinsic worth, sometimes quite the opposite. Towards the end, Bug-Eye and Bald Spot go on a Christmas expedition into Seoul's main shopping district, and we get to see the matter from the other side: conspicuous overconsumption and Super Mario. There's something rather Dickensian about Familiar Things: a robust authorial conscience, a strong narrative, and plausible characters inhabiting an often invisible tier of social deprivation. But it's also a very Korean novel. The spirits, the dokebi, take us back into the peninsula's distant past. Some of the story takes place around the festival of Chuseok, and when kimchi making season arrives, much of the incoming rubbish is cabbage. This is an affecting novel, and one that will probably stay with most readers for a long time. The Familiar Things of the title refers to the thrown out things on the rubbish dump, but it also raises a question: just how familiar are we with the world we live in? Not very, I think, is Hwang's answer. What bits exactly are we unfamiliar with? Well, that's what makes this novel so interesting. Read it and see if you agree.